to another weekly baseball report here on Mountaineers Now. I'm Skylar Kelly, and joined with me, as always, is Christopher Hall. It's been a minute since we've been able to do this due to some scheduling issues, some rain, a lot of other crazy stuff's been going on. So we're back at it. We're going to get you this episode once a week to fill you in on Mountaineer baseball, to recap, and then obviously the upcoming slate. So West Virginia, since last time we've talked, has kind of hit a little bit of a slide now. They just lost to Penn State in the midweek game. They dropped, what was it, 2 of 3 over the weekend to Kansas. So you're going to have these kind of ups and downs throughout the season. There's no doubt about that. The baseball season is way too long for a team to consistently stay hot from start to finish, unless you're one of the top, 3 or 4 teams in the nation. But even then, those teams still have a little bit of I would say they hit a wall at some point. And that's kind of the theme in this upcoming weekend series between West Virginia and Oklahoma State, because just like West Virginia, Oklahoma State is also kind of in a little bit of a rut. They dropped 2 of 3 to, I believe it was TCU, and then they just lost their midweek game to Oral Roberts. So both of these teams coming into this series needing to get a series win. Now, again, West Virginia, to do so on the road, it's going to be very challenging. I would think, I don't want to speak for you, but I would think you're probably going to say winning a game in Stillwater is probably a win. But anything more than that is just going to be kind of the icing on top. So before we get into the OSU stuff, let's just talk about Penn State, the Kansas series. What went wrong from your perspective in those 4 games?
The 2 starting pitchers for Friday and Saturday, you have Ben Hampton. Day one, struggled, obviously, when you in a Big 12 play competition, uh, is lifted tremendously. So he's kind of struggled. He really struggled last week at home. A bit of a surprise, and same way with Blaine Traxel. He's been solid all season, but he struggled in his first 2 outings in the Big 12. So that was kind of the theme going into the season. Didn't really know pitching wise how good they were going to be. We knew Hampton had a solid sophomore season. Didn't know how far he had progressed. It doesn't seem like he's really gotten over that hump to be kind of one of the star pitchers in the Big 12. Still a solid pitcher. Still have some work to do. Uh, Sunday pitching has been kind of up in the air with Grant Siegel. He got moved to midweek starter this week while freshman Robbie Porco picked up 12 strikeouts in the series salvaging win against Kansas. So pitching really has been the problem. That kind of carried over to Penn State. Midweek pitching's been rough the last couple of years, to put it kindly. Don't have that Jackson Wolf, that kind of guy in the middle of the midweek guy where your weekend starters are so good, you have a solid midweek guy that's actually pitching in the majors now. So just lack of depth. You can kind of go with that with NIL. They've lost some guys in the portal, some top recruits when kind of the NIL started. They lost them to bigger schools, but offensively has been a surprise all around. You're seeing a lot of runs. You lost Austin Davis to the portal to go to TCU to play with his brother his final year, and then you lost McGuire Holbrook to Florida State. Obviously, 2 good, really good programs. A lot more funding than West Virginia. So when you lose your 2 top hitters from last season, you kind of think offensively they're going to struggle. Then Macy says, "Oh, we're gonna be a power team this year and runs," and you're just like, "Wait, what?" True to his word, it's really throughout the lineup. You've seen a lot of home runs from this team. So the offense hasn't been a problem. They're obviously going to hit some spots in the Big 12 when they go up against some good pitching that they're not going to hit double figures, 6, 7, 8, or up to 10, 12, 15 against Marshall last week to pull out a 15-9 win just because of the pitching. That's really what happened at Penn State. Add to the fact that was the best atmosphere, to my understanding, from people from Penn State that they'd ever seen in their life, and that was people
Wow.
who lived at State College. Great marketing ploy, dollar hot dog night.
There you
Their
go.
stadium's on campus, so everybody on Penn State campus came out and got a bunch of hot dogs. Brought a bunch of fans out. It was great. They got a good inning, rode the momentum, pulled out the win. So Penn State's not a good program. Shouldn't have lost that game, but when you lack depth in pitching, you don't have a guy that can go deep midweek, and you got to rely on the bullpen, and they come in and just can't throw strikes. And then a bad play with the bases loaded clears the bases. It was kind of a crazy scene, but couldn't communicate because there were so many students in there hollering from all the hot dogs they ate. And so it was just kind of a crazy atmosphere. And like I mean, if you watch an SEC game or even a game in Morgantown, it didn't match that. But when you got a team like Penn State that's trying to find their way and they've gotten kind of hot as of recent, um, sweeping a bad team can give a team confidence. And really, when they started kind of catching momentum there, they just build on it, and it's kind of snowball effect with a young pitching staff. It's going to happen. Dr. Mazey after the game, like they just kind of came off a winning streak prior to last week. Like you said at the beginning, this is going to happen. No time to panic, but it is a cause for concern with young arms. Don't want to put too much stock in it, but yes, a win at Oklahoma State would be huge. You want to avoid the sweep. They win both games. Look out!
Yeah.
They're back. That's a tough ass to win. But even one game out there right now, even though they're in the slop, they've got some good pitching.
And it's not like West Virginia's in the position to really overlook anybody. I mean, they still have a lot to prove themselves, but I mean, I got to be honest. Like I went through it too. Like when I was in college and we played, some crap midweek team, kind of go through the motions a little bit for that other team. That's a huge opportunity to get a quality win, like for Penn State. West Virginia just could have went through the motions. I don't know if that's what it kind of felt like when you were there, but those kind of things can happen, especially when you got a big series on deck like Oklahoma State, where you've got to go on the road. Um, I guess just speaking bigger picture here, like how much do you feel like this loss to Penn State itself, not so much the Kansas series, because I think you're gonna win and lose some of those series, but the one single game loss to Penn State, how much will that hurt West Virginia in their resume for the NCAA tournament?
It definitely doesn't help. I didn't look at the RPI this week to see how much they fell. Penn State was way down there in the RPI, so it definitely hurts. But long scheme of things, you just handle it. You get a return game with them here in a couple weeks, so you can right the wrong. You're going to have games like this with young arms that you have to
Yeah,
depend on in the midweek, especially when you're playing rivals. West Virginia was just previously ranked before they lost to Kansas, and Kansas was coming off I think they had won four in a row or something like that. They just sweep Baylor one, so they were on a 4 or 5 game winning streak and really kind of boosted their resume as well. So you don't want to put too much stock into it. It's April; they have a lot of opportunities ahead of them against quality opponents. It's not like West Virginia lacks a quality schedule, so they're definitely not going through the motions. They were putting up runs. It's just sometimes after a 3.5 hour bus trip, everything kind of just can possibly go wrong that goes wrong. It's kind of hard to build back up. They were only down two, put on a couple base runners on the following inning, and just couldn't bring any across. Penn State again riding momentum, puts up three more, and that was it. They still had 6 outs left, but we've all been there. It kind of seems insurmountable. Bunch of young kids. It's bound to happen. So build from it, grow from it, move on.
yeah. I mean, it is kind of taxing. There's long bus rides, and then you sit there and you play a game, and then while you're playing the game, you're like, oh man, we got to drive all the way back tonight, like after this game. So it's like there's a little bit of a mental aspect to that
Yeah,
too.
it's kind of crazy. It's a closer trip than the Big 12, but they had the longest. Probably felt like the longest
Yeah,
trip having to drive all the way up the
that is
state
true.
college. So different.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, I mean, more on the pitching. I want to hit on that more this week. Um, it seems like I wouldn't say a majority, but there's a lot of runs given up via the long ball. And I don't know exactly why that is. I don't know that there's a complete remedy to it other than you just got to hit your spots better and kind of pick your poison. Um, but I think some of is kind of due to inexperience. I mean, Ben Hampton, I mean, yes, he's been a starter. It's not like he's been doing this for 4 years. Blaine Traxel, this is his first year in Power Five baseball. You got some new guys that you're working in the back end of that rotation. Like, it's going to take a little bit of time, but I mean, how much of it could be just these guys just wanting to overpower people and it just backfiring and they leave a pitch right over the heart of the plate? Like, how much of it is that versus just not hitting spots?
I'd say more of it's to do with scouting. all these programs now have everything available to them. Tendencies, baseball's always been big on this. So you're seeing more programs just invest in these things. There's all the tape now. All these games are streamed on ESPN Plus, so they can go back and watch all the film they want. We even heard Huggins joke about it last year, this past season, like, "Oh, you got ESPN Plus, scout all you want." So
Exactly.
that's really the biggest difference. It goes both ways. West Virginia's hit a lot of home runs. Just kind of went over that. So you're seeing a lot just around the country. We see it at the major league level, just a lot more pop to the bat. You also have to remember in college, you're using aluminum bats, you're using the metal bats, so they're going to jump off. And a lot of these places, so Kansas State series a couple weeks ago, it was high winds. Anything that got lifted with any power in the air
Was
was a
banned.
home run. And it's a small field. So you're just seeing probably the evolution of the athlete. I know even in the '90s there was a push for wooden bats because it got dangerous. I'm kind of shocked they're still using aluminum bats at this day. So I guess that's just kind of how the game evolved. You can scout, set on a pitch. The kid throws an 86-mile-an-hour fastball, and he usually generally throws it on the inside. You set it on and wait on it. I mean, they just have more scouting available right now. So just a lot more of that. And then you got consistency issues across the board, control issues across the board. So you can put guys on more often. So there's just it's kind of crazy when you see like a Marshall game that's 15-9. The game was still just a little bit over 3 hours. The pace of play
Yeah.
is still fast. Pitch clock's been around for the Big 12 now for a few years, so you have a less deceptiveness and kind of more going after kids. But the scouts out. You don't have guys that have five or six. It's rare to see college kids that have five or six different pitches as well. So you just got they got offense, and that's kind of what you have to rely on. Is a lot of times is that you can produce as many runs as the other team. We saw Texas onslaught last year. That squad, I mean, they were just
Oh god.
piling up runs. Now West Virginia, like it's like they're catching up offensively. They've always had to manufacture runs, user speed, but now they can do both. They have guys that are sluggers, and some of those sluggers can steal bases as well. But they have a lot of speed still. So you're just seeing the pace of play speed up. Other teams trying to keep up. So you're just generating more offense. I don't think it's necessarily bad baseball or just really bad pitching or anything.
Yeah, I mean it is kind of a complete I wouldn't say philosophy because I think to his heart, like Randy Mazey's still gonna play the game to his style, but
Yes.
it's definitely
He does.
it's a
But he
different
just has
version
he
of
just has bigger bats now. You looked in the past, you just had like a Paul McIntosh that would have 7, 8 home runs in a year. Now you have JJ
that's your lead.
Weatherholt. Yeah, and now you have JJ Weatherholt with 7 home runs halfway through the year, and he's your second baseman.
And
You guys
sometimes
guys right and you guys got guys right behind them with 6 or 5. And again, you're halfway through the year. So hey, man, it makes it enjoyable. It's not lengthening the game. It gets a little crazy and wild at times, like it did at Penn State, but it also makes it fun. And you can tell the fans enjoy it when they're there. Morgantown gets crazy on the weekend, so
I
it's
see the
it's
big colors
definitely
push up through. Oh my god.
that's one of the frats that they're making their pledges do. So they're definitely having fun with it in Morgantown. It is a lot of fun to watch, despite the recent little bit skid that they've got going right now.
So what does West Virginia have to do this weekend to just steal a game? I'm not saying that they got to win the series or anything, and I think that's asking a lot, but you cannot go into this and get swept. I think that's very, very obvious. So how can they come at least out of this thing with one win?
Uh, you're going to Traxel was consistent prior to the last 2 weeks. If he can kind of find his rhythm again, it's so hard with that right now because Big 12 is so good. Like I just went over the whole scouting thing. But they're really going to have to bear down and try to get off their tendencies. Try to keep the hitters on the hills and off. Oklahoma State pitching is really well. Patient at the plate. You know, be wary of the umpire. If he's calling it wide that night, swing the bat, protect the plate. I think that's very important. Seeing a lot of kids from all over watching ball three go by. And it's been, it might be inconsistent, but it's been consistently inconsistent wide. You know what I mean? So it's
And
not
Randy
like they're
talked
going to
about
get a one side advantage. You got to protect the plate. So protect the plate, play clean on the defensive end, some errors, especially from unusual suspects like Tevin Tucker. He's always been solid at shortstop. Just stay locked in, focus in the field because the balls are going to definitely be flying around. So defensively, they got to be on point. There's been too many goofy errors. It's trying to pick the ball up with the glove and flip it. Like you didn't even need to try to do that because you could have just picked it. You could have picked it up and walked it over to the first base. It's just stupid mental things like that. That's kind of that cost them at Penn State, quite frankly. And then not charging the ball, letting it boot up to you is silly things like that. They gotta just clean up. That hasn't really been a problem, but you got to play clean out there.
Yeah, Randy talked about it too, about how I don't know if it was after the Penn State game or maybe after the Kansas series, about how guys just aren't necessarily as locked in at the plate as they were early. I mean, even though they're still producing runs, they're not eager to hit right away. They're not ready to hit. They're taking the first pitch almost every single time. When you get into Big 12 play, I mean, these pitchers, they're going to throw a bunch of strikes. Like you're going to have to be in there and be ready to hit from that very first pitch, and sometimes that may be the best thing you get. So we'll see what happens. Actually, let's do this. First time we've ever done this. Go ahead and give your prediction for the weekend. How does this thing shake out? You got a sweep, 2 games going one way. What do you think?
It, West Virginia seems to catch these promotional things. It's Orange Power Weekend, whatever that is. Haven't looked fully into it, but it's like one of the only promotional things that Oklahoma State's doing on the weekend, other than they always do Sunday Fun Day. So don't know what to expect crowd wise. It's a great baseball program. So weekend game, I'm sure the crowd's going to be fired up. I'd like to see just West Virginia get one out. I think they can get one out. I think out of the 3 pitchers, I don't think you can asking freshman
Yeah,
Porco if he's still the Sunday slot. They hadn't put the notes up, starters up before we started this, so I don't know if sure he's still in the Sunday slot. Big ask for him on the road. I mean his second weekend start, and then hopefully Hampton Draxel can get you one. I would say out of the 3, they can probably get you one. Hoping if not, I think the offense can at least provide them one. I mean, they've put up 8 runs an inning this year so far. So I'll say they'll at least get one. If they get 2, that go
back
beat
on
Pitt
track.
and come back. Morgantown play TCU it'd be huge.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 1 too. I think I'm gonna go the second game. I think Trax will eat up a bunch of innings. He'll get back to his shape, and I think Oklahoma State they'll take that first game. They'll be riding high. Seems like Mazey's teams typically bounce back pretty well, especially if they lose on that first game. I don't know. I don't have the statistic in front of me. Just from the feeling, it just seems like that. So I'm going to go lose, win, lose. That's how the series is going to go. So that's going to do it here for your weekly baseball update here on Mountaineers Now on Between the Ears on Mountaineers Now. For Christopher Hall, I'm Skylar Callan. We'll be back next week with a new episode recapping what went down this weekend in Stillwater. Thank you guys for watching. Take care. Have a great weekend.